Today we're going to be looking at the opening stages of the Civil War, looking at the years of 1861 and 1862. Here are your video goals. By the end of the video you should be able to explain to me how the North originally approached the war with the South, what happened at the Battle of Bull Run and during the Peninsular Campaign, and how this affected the North's attitude toward the war. You should be able to tell me about the 4 total war strategies employed by the North in 1862, and how each of these strategies was supposed to help the North win. You should be able to describe George McClellan to me and talk about his time as the North's leading general. And you should be able to define the following 3 terms: total war, blockade, and emancipation. So let's pick up where we left off 2 videos ago with the fall of Fort Sumter and Lincoln's call to war. So Lincoln calls the nation to war in April 1861 after South Carolina attacks the federal fort in just off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina. And Lincoln calls for 75,000 volunteers to join the army. He calls them up from all the different Union states, and he calls them up for a period of 90 days because Lincoln, like lots of other people in the North, believe that the war will be quick. Lincoln expects that all he will have to do is assemble a big army, march down into Virginia, beat the Southern Army once or twice, capture the southern capital of Richmond, Virginia, and then the war will be over. And so the war won't even last a year, it'll be over quickly, and everything will be fine. So Lincoln doesn't really make any far-reaching claims for what he hopes to accomplish in the war, and he says that his primary purpose is just to bring the southern states back into the Union, and he doesn't say anything about trying to end slavery. And so in 1861, the United States tries its first invasion of the South. So it gets together its army and of these 75,000 recruits, and they basically just start marching down into Virginia. And basically the North marches off as if they are some kind of parade or celebration. They believe that they're going to destroy the Southerners in a single battle and that it's not even going to be difficult. Civilians even follow along behind the army carrying picnic baskets because they want to watch the victorious North as they progress towards Richmond. You see a map there on the right. The blue line shows exactly how far the Union Army got before it met the Confederate Army. And so they meet in a town, near a town called Manassas at the first battle of the Civil War, called the Battle of Bull Run. And at this battle, the South wins. The North expects to overwhelm a smaller Southern force, but the Southerners refuse to retreat. And the leader of the Southern group that refuses to retreat is General Thomas Jackson, who is reported to have stood like a stone wall. And from then on, this general is known as Stonewall Jackson. So his outnumbered troops stand there and fight back against a larger Union army until other Southern troops can get to the battle area, and they surprise the Northern army. They give a frightening shriek that is known forever after as a rebel yell, and they run out of the woods, surprising the Northern army and causing the Northern army to run away in fear back to Washington, D.C. And so the South wins the first battle of the war. The Northerners are sent home with their tail between their legs, and it is time for the North to consider a different battle plan because it turns out it's not going to be super easy to beat the South like they thought it was going to be. So they decided to try again the next year in 1862. The first thing that happens is Lincoln gets a new commander, promoting General George McClellan to the top spot in the U.S. Army. And McClellan spends a lot of his time preparing the army. So the first time, the army just sort of marched down without any preparation. But this time, McClellan hangs out near Washington, D.C., training the army day after day, trying to hone the army into an effective fighting force. But after a long time of training, it looks like McClellan hasn't even started thinking about attacking the South. And so Lincoln demands action. He says, McClellan, you've got to go down there. You've got to strike a blow. And so McClellan eventually does decide on an attack plan. And rather than just marching down into Virginia again, he decides that what he's going to do is he's going to launch his Peninsular Campaign. And what that means is he's going to load the army up onto ships. He's going to follow this arrow around and land on a peninsula near Richmond, Virginia. And there he'll be able to make a short march to Richmond and conquer the city and end the war. That's McClellan's plan. And he advances very slowly, very, very slowly. And this gives the Confederate army, led by Robert E. Lee, time to go down to Richmond and to meet McClellan there. And Lee is eventually able to defend Richmond and to push McClellan back, and McClellan is forced to retreat all the way back to the ocean and then to take ships back to Washington, D.C. And so McClellan also, even with his elaborate plan, has been defeated. And so with this second defeat, the North is starting to realize that there's not going to be any sort of quick victory. At first they thought they were going to be able just to slap the South around and to capture Richmond and win, no problem. But now they see that the South is serious and that the South knows how to fight. And so they're going to have to come up with a bigger and better plan if they want to win the war. And so they start to shift towards a strategy of total war. Total war is an idea of warfare in which you attack an enemy nation as a whole. And you target its people, its economy, as well as its army. So you don't just fight against the enemy army, but you attack the entire nation. That's the idea of total war. And so Lincoln begins to implement a type of total war by implementing 4 different strategies. The first strategy he implements is a naval blockade. He uses the North's superior navy to block off the entire southern coastline. And he does this to block the South from trading. What this means is the South will be unable to trade cotton with Europe, with Britain and France, and that it won't be able to bring in important stuff like guns or shoes or other things that it needs to fight the war. And so in this way he hopes to kind of starve the South into giving up. Number 2, Lincoln decides that it's important to capture the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River connects connects a lot of the states of the Confederacy together. And if the North can capture the Mississippi River, it will cut the Confederacy in half, splitting it into western and eastern sections. And that will give the North a big advantage. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is Lincoln starts to think that he might have to emancipate the slaves that live in the South. And he wants to do this for a couple reasons. One, he thinks that by emancipating Southern slaves, he will be able to ruin the Southern economy because they won't be able to grow any more cotton, and that will basically deprive the South of money. 2, by emancipating slaves, he will be able to incorporate these guys into the army and will have extra troops with which to fight against the South. And 3, Lincoln wants to capture the capital city of the Confederacy, which is Richmond, Virginia. And if he can capture Richmond, Virginia, he will be able to destroy the Southern government and will be able to deprive the South of its leadership. And so those are the 4 different strategies that Lincoln decides that he's going to pursue after he realizes that the South is serious about fighting this war. And so basically the idea is that this type of war is going to take a long time, but that it is a sure route to victory. That by attacking the South all over, and not just marching right into Virginia, they'll be able to slowly strangle the South to death. and to force it to surrender and to come back to the United States. That's Lincoln's plan, and we'll see in a few days how it plays out. Here are your goals again. You should now be able to answer these questions, and if you're still not sure, go back and check out everything I said again, or maybe pick a specific slide based on what you're not sure about, and try listening over again to what I've said, and that should help you so that way you're ready to go when you get to class tomorrow.